I'm so happy to have Dr. Kara Weatherman with me today on the Living the Pharm Life podcast. Dr. Weatherman is a renowned nuclear pharmacist and an expert in radiopharmaceuticals, as well as faculty here at Purdue University. Dr. Weatherman, I think it's safe to say that we've known each other pretty closely for a while, so I'm very excited to have you here today for this episode.
Thank you very much for letting me come and share.
Yeah, of course. So, to start off this sharing, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? How did you get into nuclear pharmacy and everything at Purdue?
Sure. So I am a 1994 graduate of Purdue University and was in the pharmacy track, and honestly had no idea what nuclear was. I'd never heard of it. I'd never seen anything about it. My mom was a pharmacist, which is kind of how I ended up in pharmacy school. But when I was here, I took an intro course on nuclear pharmacy and diagnostic imaging, and it seemed very interesting to me. And so I started in the curriculum here, kind of went through the curriculum. I did have an opportunity to do a summer internship, and that really was what solidified it for me. I tell the students all the time that I had my epiphany, luckily very early in my pharmacy school career. And so I just loved it. It was very different and unique. And so I really had no other choices in my mind of what I wanted to do when I graduated. So
yeah, well, I know you and I both know what nuclear pharmacy is. For any of our audience that isn't familiar, could you tell us more about what nuclear pharmacy is?
Sure. So there is a subspecialty of radiology called nuclear medicine. And in nuclear medicine, we take a drug product, a drug molecule, and it actually carries a radioactive isotope with it. And so once that's injected in the body, the drug molecule behaves the way it normally would in the body. And the fact that it has this isotope that gives off radiation, we can track it and actually see how it moves through the body, how it follows the physiologic process. But the issue with radioactivity is it goes away. So it has a distinct half-life, and when we want to put it in people, we'd like to have very short half-lives, but that does create a problem when you want to make the drug. So a nuclear pharmacist is a pharmacist. We dispense prescription drug products. It's just those prescription drugs have a radioactive isotope on it. So a nuclear pharmacist will take a radioactive source, will do kit preparation or chemistry to actually radio-label it, and then we prepare it as a unit dose for patient administration.
All right, thank you so much for that very detailed explanation. Diving more into the specifics of nuclear pharmacy, it's a pretty exciting time in nuclear pharmacy. You do a lot of research on campus, as I very well know. Can you tell us more about why it's such an exciting time to be going into nuclear pharmacy?
Sure. So nuclear medicine and nuclear pharmacy have been around since, nuclear medicine since the 40s or so, and nuclear pharmacy really started in the early 1970s. So it's actually been a very long-standing career option. But what's really exciting about it today is an area we call theranostics. And theranostics is where we take a drug molecule that's very specifically targeted to a particular component of a cell, most of the time a tumor. And now we take our radioactivity, attach it to that. When we inject it into a patient, we can first see with a diagnostic or a low energy type of radiopharmaceutical, we can see where the tumor is throughout the patient's body. And then once we've identified that, we basically take that same molecule or something very, very similar to it, and we add a different isotope that actually has cell killing capabilities. And so what we've created is a targeted cell killing molecule, essentially. And so this drug product will take it to those exact same cells, and the radiation will sit there and actually kill off the cells. So unlike chemo, for example, where we give a drug that goes all over the body and it works at tumor cells, but we also have other cells that are impacted by it that I always want it to be impacted. With these, we get a much better targeted focus of where we want that cell kill to be. So it is a hugely expanding market. Thanks in part mostly to the fact that our drug molecules, we can do a much better job of targeting different parts of a cell that we weren't able to do 15 years ago. And so it really is an exploding area in our field.
Yeah, and it's a great place to be here at Purdue as well, because we are one of 5 places, right, that has a nuclear certificate program?
Right, right. So, so when you graduate from pharmacy school, you obviously have to be a pharmacist to be a nuclear pharmacist, but you also have to have very specific training that is set forth by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which is all about how you handle radioactivity safely. And so the curriculum that we teach here kind of combines what you need to do as a nuclear pharmacist with the specific requirements of the nuclear training. And so that's basically, as you walk out the door into our field, you already have that 200 hours of dedicated training, which is a requirement. So, and you're right, there's only 5 schools that do this. So it's a very, very unique little market that we have. Well, that leads to an interesting question, though. So how in the world did you get involved in this? Because usually the word nuclear for a lot of people is like, okay, but you're very engaged in it. So
See, for me, it was the opposite. During my senior year of high school, I had to write a 10-page paper for my anatomy course on my future profession. And I knew I wanted to do pharmacy by that point, and I said, I'm going to write this paper on pharmacy. My anatomy teacher said, no, you're not. And I said, what do you mean? She said, that's not specific enough. I said, well, how can pharmacy be any more specific? You've got CVS, you've got hospital, maybe you become a professor, but that doesn't seem likely. I was like, it's CVS all the way. And I'm from Rhode Island. CVS is headquartered in Rhode Island, so CVS all the way. And so my teacher was like, there are different types of pharmacy. And I asked her what the different types were, and she couldn't answer my question. So I went home and I Googled it, and I'm going down this list, and I'm like, that is a lot of things. And then nuclear pharmacy was on the list. And I was kind of obsessed with radiation when we learned about it in my chemistry class sophomore year of high school. And I said, well, you know, at least this will be interesting to write a 10-page paper on. It's like, nobody else is going to write a 10-page paper on radioactive drugs. I can do that. And that's when I found the Purdue University website. But it was one of those things where it piqued my interest because I just thought it was the coolest thing. When I started learning about radioactivity, I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah. I was very much the same way, although, you know, we always joke about in my family because coming home, you know, my parents were kind of like, didn't you touch radioactivity today? It's like, yes, I touched a lot of radioactivity today. But I don't know if I could write a 10-page paper on it either. So kudos to you. But, you know, I think one of the things that's really a true take home, which is very exciting for you guys now, the students that are getting into this now, is there are just so many different options. I mean, I will tell you always, when you come to Purdue as a pharmacy student, I think one of the really selling points of Purdue as an academic institution in the area of pharmacy is we give you the opportunity to see a lot of things that you can't see at other colleges of pharmacy. And it doesn't mean you can't go into them long term, but you know, at least here you get to experience it and learn a little bit about it. And nuclear is one of those, obviously, with only 4 other places that do this. But in the last probably 10 years, even in the nuclear space, the number of different career paths that you can now take, right? So you can dispense, if you're interested in manufacturing and FDA, you can go the route of radiopharmaceutical manufacturing. Regulatory compliance is huge no matter what you do. And so there's a lot of folks that really like more of the industrial focus of regulatory and FDA and clinical trials and things like that. We're expanding into maybe seeing a lot more of our pharmacists go into a clinical site where they're actually face-to-face with patients. You know, for the longest time, nuclear was very much a separate lab kind of environment. But we see in the future where pharmacists are going to be more engaged with these theranostics patients and following their levels and working with physicians to take care of these patients who are receiving these radioactive drugs. So one of my colleagues in the medicine space said this is probably the most exciting time for nuclear medicine that he's seen in his 40+ years of practice. I'd say the same thing about nuclear pharmacy practice. I've been in the field for 30 years plus. And so I think this is just unprecedented in what we've ever seen. So it's very exciting. And I think that's part of my job, is to make sure that we give our students the opportunity to see and experience that. And, you know, hopefully they'll love nuclear as much as I did. Now, I will tell you, I never thought I'd be a teacher. That was different. but definitely, I think nuclear is a very exciting career path.
Could you share more about the history of the program here at Purdue?
Yeah. So this really went back if you really want to go back, John Christian, who was a member of our bionucleonics department, he was one of the first folks that was really interested in this idea called tracer methodology, which is where we're tracing a physiologic process. So he did a lot of research in that area. And then one of his graduate students was Dr. Stan Shaw, who was my mentor. He came here and got his PhD and came back and started teaching. And he was a pharmacist originally who kind of got into this. And so as nuclear was kind of morphing and modifying a little bit, he recognized that pharmacists could play a role, he and obviously others in the field, but so he was really what we would call one of our major pioneers in terms of nuclear pharmacy as a practice. And so he spent his entire career at Purdue and was very well known both nationally and internationally. And so we just kind of morphed into this place of trying to be a leader in this particular area.
Yeah. And so Purdue as a whole, very much a leader. We've just opened Purdue University in Indianapolis. How do you see nuclear pharmacy kind of working in Indianapolis with this new location?
Yeah, so between nuclear pharmacy, so pharmacy is the dispensing side, but one of the other areas that we focus on and we're really increasing our focus on is the manufacturing side. So Purdue has an existing manufacturing focus with our industrial pharmacy groups. And so, but manufacturing a radiopharmaceutical is going to be different than what you would see at Lilly and AbbVie and places like that because of the radioactivity. So while we follow the same rules, we still have to account for that. And if you think it's a very small model of folks that actually know nuclear pharmacy, it's even smaller in the manufacturing world. So as it turns out, though, Indianapolis, just because of its geographic location, they've got a great FedEx hub. We have about 15 different radiopharmaceutical manufacturing companies that are setting up shop in the Indianapolis area, primarily because they can get their drugs to about 70 to 80% of the country in 10 hours or less. And so that has really kind of shifted the game here in the state. And now we have our pharmacy side who are going to dispense it, but we're really focusing on the group of people who are going to be making it. And so Purdue really has the potential to play a huge role in the pipeline of folks going to work at these facilities. And it's not just pharmacy, it's manufacturing, it's regulatory, it's health physics, it's engineering. And we really, because of some of the connections we've had with the folks that are working in these industry sites, we have created a little consortium of these radiopharmaceutical manufacturers. And because they're in Indy, it's logical then that we would try to set something up in Indianapolis. So the nuclear group, we're creating a radiopharmaceutical manufacturing training center in Indianapolis, where we will have places that not only our students could go to train, but also folks at these facilities could come back and do hands-on training and or use the facility for more extensive training if a company was interested in that. And then we are working on master's degrees in different areas. Specifically, our first one is going to be in radiopharmaceutical manufacturing. And that is most likely going to be based at the Indianapolis campus because we are going to most likely be using some of those facilities as co-ops and internship sites and things like that. But I would guess that some of our West Lafayette students will also be going down to use the facilities down there once they're up and running.
I was just about to ask how this would impact our West Lafayette students. I gotta know how it's gonna, I gotta get in on this.
Yeah. I think it's really clever in the fact that we have obviously now a transport system that will be able to get down there and utilize these. And so I do think we fit very nicely in the two-campus model. And again, the really key part of us being in Indianapolis is that's where most of those folks are going to be when they're actually doing the manufacturing. And they're not going to be able to take time off to come do a 6-week class somewhere. And so I think we're really setting ourselves up to have a lot more engagement and interaction with these companies.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
I have one final question for you.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you're familiar, but on every episode, I like to ask our guests kind of a random question. So my random question for you is, what's the most random fact you know?
So because I am a nuclear pharmacist by trade, and I do like the fact that I teach, I can't give you an actual number, but one of the benefits of having our program for as long as we have, and we're we're quite a large program compared to some of our other colleagues. So we have a significant number of practitioners in the nuclear space that are basically Purdue graduates or Purdue affiliated from training, and that's actually moved over into the industrial space as well. And so some people might not find this a fun fact, but it is a surprising number of people who know who you are if you are a Purdue graduate. And it is very interesting to see the dynamics of how our students are able to go in and actually engage with these folks. And really, literally, for most of them, they're like, oh, you're a Purdue student. That's amazing. And that starts the conversation. If there's a perfect example of how we're a small community where being affiliated with Purdue particularly really benefits you in the long run, we are probably one of the golden examples of that. So I guess my fun fact is there is a more than average number of folks in our profession that have a Purdue tie, which is really going to be helpful for our students as they go out and do this.
It was very evident to me when we were in Orlando for APHA 2024 back in March. Every single person I went up to in the nuclear field, I was like, hi, I'm Isabella, I'm from Purdue. And they're like, oh, you're one of Kara's students.
I don't know if that's always a good thing, but yes, a lot of people
you're famous in the nuclear space.
Yeah.
I'm famous by association.
Well, and I always tell people when they ask me, I am a huge poster child for selling nuclear to anybody that wants to ask, but anybody that would like to ask, we're very open to sharing. And again, our tie-in to the fact that we have so many of our graduates that are out in the space, really all you need to go in and ask when you get into one of these facilities and say, would I like to tour? Can I see what you're doing? And, the nuclear pharmacy group is very excited about getting more people involved in our profession. So it's a very close-knit community that you probably don't see in a lot of other areas of practice. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I have had an amazing time having you here today. And thank you so much for being here on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.